and you could tell. I never really noticed this before. Like I'm saying, like years ago, like years ago when it first aired, I never really paid attention to Dina's face, but I went and rewatched, and Dina, she is sitting there on the chair and she's looking at Caroline, and she's actually telling Caroline, Caroline, stop. Like, Caroline, I don't want you to talk about that. And she's like, Caroline, like, please, like, don't talk about it. Like, she's begging Caroline not to bring it up, right? And Caroline, she doesn't bring it up, but she basically says it without saying it, right? She's making this big scene and this big deal, and then she breaks down crying, and she looks at Danielle and she points her finger at her, and she's like, what you did is so disgraceful, despicable, disgusting. You are garbage. What you did to my family, I will never forgive you. You'll never be a friend of mine. So, you know, it's normal as the viewer to be like, what the heck? You know, what did Danielle do? What did Danielle do? Right? Like, especially after the book, and then like Andy's like talking about the book and everything that is in the book. You're thinking, what did Danielle do? And then Dina doesn't want to talk about it either. And Dina, you could tell that she doesn't look happy, and she's very pensive and very like in her thoughts in that instance, right? So anyways, so whatever Kim D said in that video, I can agree with, and I can support, and just be like, yes, you know, this is true. This is definitely part of the falling out between the sisters, because Caroline did not respect her baby sister Dina's wishes to wish to not, you know, talk about something so sensitive. Okay, and that thing was that Danielle basically said to, okay, so at the beginning I said that Danielle knows, she's actually good friends, and I've heard Danielle say that out of her own mouth years ago. Danielle is or was good friends with Dina's first husband's sister. So basically, Dina's former sister-in-law, Danielle, was friends with her, like good friends, right? And I guess that, you know, because Danielle and Dina were not getting along, and Danielle was talking to the sister, right? The sister was probably like, oh, how come her kid is even on TV? Like, my brother doesn't even have any knowledge of, you know, this show and her appearing on the show. Because I think that, you know, Dina's first husband at the time, he didn't live in like, he wasn't in New Jersey, he was in Greece or Cyprus, right? So he didn't know what was going on with Dina's kid at the time. So I guess Danielle explained to the sister how things work. And it's like, well, he must know about it because, you know, she's a minor, and in order for her to appear on TV, he has to sign. And Danielle would know because Danielle also had two daughters, and she was getting through a divorce with, you know, that Christine and Jillian's dad, and they were minors at the time. So Danielle, you know, she probably knew from experience that, you know, both signatures were required to have the kid appear on the show, right? And we know that that's true because even, you know, if we want to cross over in Atlanta, the same thing happened to Kenya. At first, she was able to show baby Brooklyn. And then another season when she was feuding with Mark, she was not allowed to show baby Brooklyn. And now I think Mark is okay with that. So now we can see baby Brooklyn again, right? So whenever one parent doesn't, you know, give the consent, I guess, you know, the kid cannot film if they are underage or not of a certain age, right? So anyways, so Danielle had the conversation with the sister, and I guess the sister went back to the brother and said, you know, your kid is appearing on a reality show. You don't have any knowledge of that, and you should do something about this, right? So now the whole thing about the whole dramatics of Caroline being like, what you did was so disgraceful, like basically implying that Danielle was trying to have Dina's child taken away from her because she was considered an unfit mom. I don't know if I believe all that. I don't have the proof of that. And like, that sounds a little bit more sensational than what it was. I really do believe that Danielle definitely had a conversation with the sister who happened to be her friend and just told her, yeah, well, you know, you should tell your brother that, you know, she's having the kid on a reality show, like, without his knowledge. I think that that's what it was. I don't think she was trying to fight for Dina to lose custody of Lexi, but that's just my opinion, right? So anyways, So basically, what they've been saying all over the years was Dina was unhappy with Caroline's decision to just talk about it on the show and felt betrayed. And because she felt betrayed by that, eventually, she just decided that she didn't want to do the show anymore, right? So people have always been, including myself, under the impression that Dina Kenton, formerly known as Manzo, left the show by herself. That was like her own doing. She wanted to leave the show. Okay. But then I was looking at a comment online and I had to go down in the archives. People really we're talking about 2010, 2011. I had to look for that information. And I came across a very interesting comment. And there's two parts to the comment. I'm just going to read you the first part. Okay, because the second part is a little bit nasty, and you guys know I don't do that, so I'm not even going to talk about that. But the first part is interesting. Okay, so the person says Dina was fired from the show for forging her ex-husband's signature for permission to have Lexi on the show. When Bravo found out what she did, they had no choice but to fire her. If they would have covered her lie, that could have been a major lawsuit. So they killed her off, saying that she couldn't stand to be on the show with that other blank Danielle. When her sister and brother didn't walk off with her, she disowned them both, and not to mention the other brother that got married on the show. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that, because what has been out there up until this point, I believe, was always that Dina left the show because she couldn't stand the drama. Obviously, that's the story they gave us on the show, and we know that those storylines are not always exactly accurate and a reflection of the real situation behind the scenes, right? So that I knew. However, the main narrative was always that Dina left the show, right? I never considered, I have to be honest, myself, I had never considered that Dina might have been fired from the show. And I will explain this, why I thought that this was interesting. Up until this point, I never really understood why Dina was mad at Caroline. Yes, I understood that, okay, this whole thing that Caroline didn't respect Dina and went against her wishes and all of that. I get that part. But to be so mad at your sister for so long, and I'm not talking about the recent incidents that took place back in 2017 with her new, husband and the home invasion. I'm not talking about that, because that had not happened at that point in time. I'm going all the way back to the beginnings. So for the people that want to come in the comments and tell me something about Dina, I'm not talking about the robbery. I'm not talking about the home invasion. I'm talking about the very beginning, season 1. When Dina was still married with Tommy. Okay. So I just want to say that it never really made sense to me that Dina was mad with Caroline for so long, and also mad with Jacqueline for so long. And Dina, if you guys recall, was also mad with Teresa for so long. So, and they all admitted to that. Right? Dina, even on her own podcast, says it to Teresa. Dina does. She says, I was mad at you at some point in time. Right? So now to me, it sort of makes sense, because the thing is, if Dina walked off on her own and was just like, F it, I don't want to do this show anymore, I have enough, and then she just resigns and leaves the show, that's her decision. So it wouldn't really make sense for her to expect other people to walk off with her, right? But if Dina was fired from the show, then it would make sense for Dina to feel like, okay, you guys are going to let them do this to me. You better support me and you better walk off with me. You, Caroline, you, Teresa, you, Jacqueline, you, Chris, right? And the reason why I think this a little bit is because Dina initially